Welcome to another episode of Behind the Dreamers. I'm Jennifer Loading, and we are talking to the achievers, the creators, the magic makers, and the dreamers. These are our friends. These are your friends, and they are living the extraordinary. Well, I am so excited about my guest today. She is a lot of fun. I've enjoyed getting to know her and what she's doing to make a difference in the world. But she says years ago, while dealing with teen substance abuse, she lost her voice, her drive, and shame and judgment ruled her life. She was consumed with trying to fix, manage, and control others. When she started to share her story on small stages, online, and on podcasts, she realized she wasn't alone in her pain. This is when she found her soul's purpose, and her mission became to share her vulnerable story more openly. So I'm so excited to chat with her and have her share a little bit about what she's going through and what she's doing now and how she's making a difference. But before we do that, we need to do a quick shout out to our sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Productions. Need to add excitement to your YouTube videos or some expert hands for editing? Look no further. Walt Mills is the solution you've been searching for. Walt is not only your go-to guy for spicing up content, he's the force behind a thriving film production company with numerous titles in the pipeline. Always on the lookout for raw talent, Walt is eager to collaborate on film and internet productions. With a background deeply rooted in entertainment and promotion, Walt Mills leverages years of skills to give you the spotlight you deserve. Want to learn more about Walt and his work? Head on over to waltmillsproductions.net and let your content shine.
Entrepreneurs, are you ready to level up your leadership skills? Tune in now for an exclusive offer designed just for you. This is my time. Did you know 63% of consumers prefer businesses aligned with their values? Recognizing your core values isn't just vital for business growth, it's the bedrock of effective leadership. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or an aspiring creator, identifying your core values is a key step in constructing the framework of a successful leader, enabling you to lead authentically, expand your business, and live life on your terms.
I never settled on play, putting the kettle to flame. I go 100 all day, foot on the pedal, no brakes. 10, 9, paid on my dues, waited in line, 8, 7.
Are you ready to access tools to kickstart your leadership journey? Unlock a treasure trove of insights and get your free resources at www.linktree/Jennifer Loading. Take that crucial first step toward realizing your leadership aspirations and elevate your leadership game today.
Ready to shine,
And so with that, we want to get our guest on the show. Super excited. Marsha Vanwynsberghe. She is a storytelling business coach, a speaker, a multi-published author, and the host of her own podcast, Own Your Choices, Own Your Life. And so, Marsha, welcome to the show. I am so excited to chat with you today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Jennifer. I'm thrilled to be here.
And you made it through that whole intro. You did a great job. I always feel like the intros are, because on this show, we don't do an intro outside. And so we have to do it each time on the show. And I've got this thing down. I feel like we just rattle this thing off every single time. But we got the guest on here, and that is you. And we are so excited to hear what you are doing and about your story. And so, again, welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm grateful to pour into your audience and share part of my story that can support somebody. It always supports somebody.
I agree. All right. So let's open this up because you are a storytelling business coach. You've got multiple things going on. You've done multiple books. You're a podcast. So tell us a little bit about what is going on in your world, what you're doing with your clients right now.
Oh, right now is a different story than what it was like 3 years ago or even 6 years ago. Right now, I am in the process of helping multiple people write and share their vulnerable stories. So I tend to attract a lot of people who have those difficult stories, but they don't know how to share them, but they know that they could do something really good in the world with them. And so we're working with a whole selection of authors right now to write their books. And we're also in the process of actually publishing. We're now branching into publishing, which was such a big thing, but at the same time, it really does make sense because of what we do, and we can support our authors as best as we can. And then on this side, I also am an NLP, neuro-linguistic programming trainer. So I actually train and run my own coaching certification to support people in using those tools to understand the power of your thoughts and your beliefs and subconscious reprogramming and healing really from the inside. And I stumbled onto those tools 3 years ago when I realized that you can push as hard as you want to change your story and to have the results that you want to create, but you can't skip over stages of healing. And it does take work to do it. But this is the work that I get to do, and I get to do both of them, and they actually mesh together. I have a number of people that join both programs. So those are the main programs, but then the podcast is growing like crazy too. So it really does all boil down to learning how to like own and share vulnerable stories.
Yeah. And I went on your website. I was kind of to get a feel for what you're doing. So I saw all this on there, and it's really neat because I just got off of a call with another gal that is kind of I hate to say like serial entrepreneur, because I think everything that we do sort of overlaps, like you're saying. It's just, we get a lot of things going because we're passionate about what we do. And so we find tools and resources and things that really fit in alignment with what our messaging is. And so I was looking at a lot of your stuff, and I saw in there that, you were in fitness and dealing with some things on that, and how you are really kind of multifaceted, I think, in what you do. And I think that's a really neat ability to be able to do all those different things.
Yeah, thank you. I spent 27 years as a registered kinesiologist. So I really helped people to rehab post-surgery, post-injuries. And it wasn't until I looked at it afterwards that I went, oh, I've actually been coaching for like 30 years. Because, when you've got people who are coming out of these kinds of physical issues and some learning to walk again, that is literally what I was doing some coaching in that area. And then probably about a decade ago, when life really started to change for us, I started to branch into sharing my story. I was still working as my full-time job. And when the pandemic came, my job was gone overnight, never came back, was literally like, talk about changing identities of a 27-year career overnight, gone. It was very interesting dynamics to learn. And then branched into this online space and went, okay, this is the time to figure it out, how we're going to do this. And, pivoting at 50 and learning all of these things, it was, now you get to put your tools and lessons like into practice, actually, right? We can talk the talk, but all of a sudden it's like, no, you've got to actually figure this out now. So it's been quite the journey.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you brought up a very good point, is this whole pivot we had to do during COVID. And there's so many messages in this, and the fact that you had this long career that ended, right? Being in the more mature stage of life where you've had this as sort of your identity, and now you have to come into this and be like, oh my gosh, I got to make a pivotal change, right? And like it's interesting because when you talked about the coaching and having done that and coming into the new space, I was in Mary Kay for 22 years. So that was kind of my identity. And when I moved into the coaching space, I realized that even though I didn't have a formal, say, coaching title, yeah, that's what I did. I was working with women for 22 years, building teams. And I think anytime we're working with women, we're doing some kind of coaching, right? Like I always feel like we're coaching. Of
course.
That's what it was. And I realized that it was when I started to merge out of that and kind of go into my own space, it was not that big of a transition as far as having to do something that I had already done, but it was still, that was my identity. Like that was what I was tied to. And then to have to come in and go, okay, now I got to do something different. And then we had COVID come in, which forced us to even make another shift, right? Like now we're not out. So we're going to the online, and how do we merge? And some really, I think, beautiful things have come out of that, because I think it forced us to really remodel our businesses in a sense.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And I think that even though those years were transition, and I still think there's some transitions that are happening, I do believe it was exactly what was supposed to happen. I believe like what I'm doing now is exactly what I was supposed to be doing. And it just took a pandemic to basically say, oh, okay, this is how it's going to happen. You're done now, and you're going to start. Because probably for the last 2 years before I left, before my job ended, I was in a space of feeling like there was more. I did love my job. I love my clients. It was one of those things that I could do pretty much in my sleep. I don't mean to say it that way. It was just it was easy. There was not a lot of challenge. It was very simple. And I know I was helping people, but I still felt like there was something more. And I couldn't figure out how to make that transition into, full-time coaching, growing business, etc. And sometimes, the universe says, okay, then this is how it's going to happen. And I believe that's literally what happened. It was just gone, and I had to figure it out. And I woke up the next day, I remember, because I dove right into it. And my husband saying, okay, like, are you going to take a couple days? And I said, you know what, my gut, I said from the very first day, this is not going to be 2 weeks. I know it's not going to be 2 weeks. This is just not going to be. And I don't want to regret not using this time. That was a big thing for me. I didn't want to have any regrets. I wanted to be able to say I gave it everything that I had. And that's literally how it unfolded. So I'm grateful for all of that, but it certainly has been a journey.
Yeah. And that's the way it is, right? Like that's just the way it is when we're doing these things. So your story, because obviously you know, I think your story is great. You have your big thing with the storytelling coach is that you're trying to help people now share their stories, which is a big part of your life because you did have a story and you found that, you know, when you started being vulnerable and opening up, obviously people can resonate with this, right? Mm-hmm. And so maybe you don't have to go into detail, but give a little back insight to our guests because they're going, okay, so what led you to this, the inspiration behind all that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was one of those things, again, I look back and the dots connect now. They didn't make sense at the time. But probably about 12 years ago, we were parents who were dealing with teen substance abuse. Our kids were young, really young. And it was a time of, you know, not experimentation, far past experimentation. And it was coming to a point where it was affecting every single aspect of their lives and ours as well. And so we were getting counseling. We were trying to get some support. We were having connections with the school, trying to figure out, like, what do we do? How do we make this work? And really, I think, to be completely honest, as a mom, my role, how I saw myself then, was my job was to fix, manage, and control everything, right? Fix it, be the fixer and do it. And a lot of moms, I feel that we sign this this contract that doesn't exist, that we think it's our job to fix every single thing in the household. And that was the pressure that I put on myself until I hit a point where it was like I literally almost lost myself in the process and nothing was changing. And it was through a counselor, a lot of work through counseling and support, where they were saying, you know, you need to be a springboard for your kids. If your kids come back to you, you've got to be a springboard. And you're nothing but a pile of quicksand right now. You can't even support yourself. And as harsh as that sounds, it was very true. I hadn't even made myself a priority of any kind. I was literally just trying to do everything else and deflecting and taking care of everyone else. And in the process, that's really how it kind of started. It's like, okay, how can I take better care of myself? And the other piece was that during that time, I'm going to say back almost 10 years ago, maybe 9-10 years ago, nobody was talking about these stories. I mean, it's really, we talk a lot about vulnerability now, but 10 years ago, social media was incredibly curated. It was perfect looking. There was no issues. And everybody's life looked really rosy. And I kept thinking, like, how can we be the only people in the world who are struggling with this? But that's what it felt like. And no matter where I went, I couldn't find anyone else who was talking about it. And so through a couple of very serendipitous experiences, I found myself in small groups sharing a vulnerable story and being in a Facebook group, finding other moms and like lots of other moms who are struggling. And it started to open up my eyes that, wait, this is a lot bigger problem than I thought it was. But like, nobody's saying anything. Well, how can we fix this? And I remember my counselor saying, maybe that's because you're supposed to. And I do remember thinking, that is absolutely insane idea. And what if it's not? What if it's not? I did have this little bit of a flutter, right? You have those moments in your life where it's like an idea comes in and you think that's crazy, but what if it's not? And I found myself in that space where I started to share. And as scary as those first couple of talks were, it was amazing how many people, like, to say I would be bombarded afterwards by moms who would say, oh my God, that's my story. And I've never told a soul. Like, I've gone for 40 years and never told anybody. And I was watching so many people buried in these shame stories. And I just went, wait a minute, this is bigger than I thought it was. And so what happened is I started to find my voice. And the more that they shared with me, the more fire it gave me, that I feel like we need to do something to start talking about these difficult stories. And that's where my first big talks came. Then I had a couple of collaborative books, and I wrote my own solo book in 2017. And it's called When She Stopped Asking Why, because the why was killing me, right? Why is only important when you're working towards a goal. It doesn't matter when you're looking back at why of something. And during that time, I went, we're still not seeing, even in 2017, we're still not seeing a lot of stories. Difficult stories come out. And I went, maybe I'll start a podcast too. And it was just this, my family thought I was crazy. People thought I was crazy. But I felt this call that I feel like this is something that I'm supposed to do. I need to normalize these conversations. And that's literally where it started. I mean, the podcast, we're well into 650 episodes now. And in the top 1.5% podcasts globally, it's grown like crazy. It's been an unbelievable experience. And it has led the way for a lot of the things that are unfolding in my life now and the people that I get to meet along the way. So my big message here is our stories. We think we're the only people in the world who are struggling. We're not. We're so much more connected, so much more alike than we think we are. And it's not the details of the story. It's what we experience, the lessons, the emotions. That's what connects us. We're literally all walking very similar paths.
That's so good. That's so good. So I had a mentor that used to always say, that which something like that which is most personal is most general, because when we're in something, we always think that we're the only one going through something, right? And like you said so many great things there when you started sharing your story and you start finding that, yes, there are more people that can resonate with those stories. But I think, and you can probably speak to your own on this, when we're going through things, because we've gone through things in our house. I think we all do, right? We have kids. We're all going through things. And I feel like there is a lot of, we don't want to be vulnerable. We don't always want to share those things, right? It's not something that we go, I just want to put those out there. But I think there's power in some of that, because to your point, what you're doing, there are people that need to hear this. They need to know there are others out there. They're not alone. They're not the only ones having to deal with this stuff. And I think it also helps people heal and grow and move past it.
It does. The level of healing I could have never, ever predicted. I really couldn't have. And it really becomes this space that the people that I have in my life today weren't here 6 years ago, 7 years ago. They weren't here at all. They're brand new people. They're incredible people. And through the process of sharing and being vulnerable, you get to build those connections. And, we think it's like the perfect things in our life that actually allow us to connect with people. And these shame stories, and a shame story is like, we all have them. We all do. But when you feed that shame story, you're literally taking your own personal power and you're giving it to the story. When you start to own your voice and learn how to become outspoken, move through those blocks, find the confidence to share it, you really do start to see that you're not even close to the only person who is struggling with what you're walking through. And I think that it's those pieces that allow us to build the connections with people now. And we can help so many other people. I really think it comes down to, we are so equipped to help the person that we once were. When I think back to me 10, 12 years ago, searching online in the middle of the night, looking for anybody who is struggling, what do I do? There was nothing available. So when I feel like, okay, I can't, can I keep doing this? But I've never had that feeling. I've always felt very called to keep going. I often think there's that younger version of me. There's a lot of people out there who were that younger version of me, who were praying to know that they were not the only people who were struggling.
That's good. And that's a big message. And I just had somebody on, I think it was last week or the week before, that said that we were talking about, and he's like, who do I serve? And I go back to, I'm looking for the person who I was, where I was at the time. And so you're right. We can speak through our own pain and the thing. That's why I was thinking when I talk to people about businesses, it's so, when I feel people have something that they're really, really passionate about, it's because they've been through it and they know. And so now they're speaking it, and it comes from a different place than it's just, I'm not saying that, don't start a business because you want to do something, but I think there is power when you've actually had to physically go through something and you're trying to fix the thing, to figure out the way to heal the problem that was a problem for you, whatever that is, right?
You're so right. And I think that's the piece is that, I could have read thousands of books on what we walk through. There's no book that would have prepared me for what we walked through. Yes, books helped. It's what you learn firsthand. What I learned firsthand, there's no book that would have taught me that. And I think that as we do this, we think of those as our imperfections, or we're not qualified, or who am I to do this? When actually the things that you're walking through are actually the things that make you qualified to help the person that you once were. And I think if we could all take that approach, we could do a lot more good in the world. I know that sounds very I'll say woo-woo, but it sounds like it. But I think that we could really make a big difference. And there's a lot of people who are hurting and a lot of people who are struggling. And at the end of the day, some of us are only a couple decisions away from being in someone else's shoes. It's very easy to sit and think, oh, well, look at, they did this to themselves, or this is what happened. You know what? I always say, you never know someone's story. The second you think you know their story, you don't. You know what they are allowing you to see. And I'll guarantee you, online space, you are seeing the 2-minute snippets of a person's day that they want you to see. There's a lot of people who are walking through really difficult times. And I feel like this could be a lesson for all of us of more grace, more compassion, more understanding, and knowing that like really good people are going through some really difficult times. So you can do something good in the world. And it's made a massive difference for me. It allowed me to get out of my own headspace and stop making it about me and be able to help other people to share their stories. So now as I see the stories that are coming in, I tend to attract some really big, difficult trauma type stories. And I'm here for it. Like, it's actually something that fuels me. And my husband always says to me, like, wow, like, how do you handle that? I'm like, because I'm not carrying it. I feel like I'm facilitating. And I think it's a very different thing. The more I work on myself, the more I can heal myself, always working on it. I don't have to carry it. I just get to facilitate and help somebody. And when they can start to see the impact and the purpose of what their story can do for somebody else, it really is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, you said so many great things there. And I think even going through your own, I think the best way to heal is to help other people. When you start finding, and you've kind of said this in so many different ways throughout this whole episode so far, about the healing comes when you're able to help other people. And that comes through whatever form that is, whether it's in your podcast, whether it's the coaching, right? That's how we learn ourselves. And I think it speaks volumes, because now we have the testimony to say, here's what I did when I was going through this hard time. Let me hold your hand and help you get through your hard time right now. I love it. It's good. Yeah, it's good. So I want to ask you, because obviously you're an entrepreneur, and I know you mentioned in the very beginning, and I know we talked off camera, and how you would have never expected this to even grow to where it is right now, because you just got out there to share your story. That's what this was about. But I would love to know, because we do get these people that are, coming on here and listening, and they're entrepreneurs and they're creators, and some of them are starting out, some have been here a while, but maybe share some of the things you had to really learn to overcome. You've said a lot already. I feel like you've told many of these, but maybe something additional that you had to overcome as an entrepreneur, maybe even just moving from the corporate space to entrepreneur space.
Mm-hmm. There's so many things. I think that it's really important to do the work on yourself and help yourself to see your own blind spots, right? Like you do. I think mentorship is incredibly important. I do, however, believe we always have the answers. We just have to find ways to unblock ourselves, like to just like move through those limiting beliefs to be able to see the answers. But the biggest project you're ever going to work on is yourself. And how you show up is what's going to dictate what is possible in your life. So, if I come on to this podcast, for example, and I do nothing but complain about my story, what I walk through, feel sorry for me, those pieces, I lived in those spaces. I'm not judging that. But if I only did that, that's only going to open up certain opportunities, different clients for me, because that's what I'm putting out there and that's what I will bring back. The more I learn to work on myself and see how it could serve a bigger purpose, I can now share it with a different lens, and that will bring other things into my life and business. So that's the first thing I'm going to say is like, you are the number one priority in your business, and find your blind spots and where your strengths are. And then surround yourself with people who can help you with those blind spots and the strengths, so that you get to do what lights you up and what your purpose is. And secondly, I don't think there's any rules. I'm going to say this. I don't think there's any rules. When I first started, I had a number of mentors say to me, you cannot start a podcast and write a book and coach people. That's too confusing. It's too much for people. And I was like, see, I think I can. I actually think I can. And I had multiple mentors say, no, that's a crazy idea. No one's ever going to follow, and it's going to be confusing. And I sat there with no experience at that time. And I had the insight that it's like, I think you're supposed to. Marsha, I think you're supposed to. And so the podcast has helped me to grow my voice and get practice, right? Having conversations with people, sharing stories. It led into the work that I do today. I think I allowed the business to unfold and the opportunities to unfold because I continued to work on myself and stay open to things that are out there. I didn't come out of the gate saying, let's build this as a business. I didn't. I think that's a blessing. I actually think that's a blessing. Not impossible, but I do think it was a blessing. But I think that when you can do that, you can start to be open to different opportunities and stick with what you love. Like you might have to come to a space of putting some blinders on and stop watching what like Susie's doing in her business and what they're doing in their business, because that might work for them. But if that's distracting for you and you can't stay focused on what it is that you love doing, then put blinders on, mute accounts, stay focused on what works for you. I've had multiple mentors say to me, you have got to stop the podcast because it's costing you time and energy and it's not leading anywhere. And I'm like, it will one day. You watch me, it will one day. I've known it and I've said it, and I'm also very stubborn and persistent, but it was like, I knew it. And I mean, some of the contracts and some of the people that I get to work with today with publishing and books, they've heard me on a podcast somewhere. So you don't know where, like, to me, podcasting is one of the most beautiful modalities ever, because it's a great way to speak and get better at sharing your message. And it's a great way to connect with other people. So you don't have to come on a podcast and like sell a service. That's actually the wrong way to do it. And I've had people do that. You need to be able to share what it is that you do and how you can support and help others. The right people will connect with you. So hopefully that gives you a few ideas of what I feel entrepreneurship can be like. It's an incredible thing. Yeah. You're not meant to do it on your own, though. Like there's a lot of different people you can connect with.
There was a lot of really good takeaways there. I like that you mentioned about being open, because I think sometimes there are times when you need to put your blinders on, stop worrying about everybody around you, focus on your path, your journey, right? Yeah. But I think also, like to your point, not being so down to the point where you listen to somebody and somebody strays you away. You go with what your internal diet, whatever your insight, what is telling you to go. Because I think when your intuition, when you start to become in tune with your intuition, I'm not saying throw out all logic, right? We don't want to do that. Right. But I think when you start to learn to know your intuition, you know what feels right, it works itself out. I just feel like in most cases, it works itself out. So you said a lot of really good things there. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I mean, I would love to see more and more people in entrepreneurship. I really would. I think that it's a beautiful path. It's work. It is, but it's brought some of the best people into my life. And I'm beyond grateful that I get to do the work that I feel can make a big difference and it can help a lot of people. So I think it's a beautiful path. And I would love to see more and more, not just women and men, be able to step into this space.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So I want to ask you one final question, then I'm going to do some fun ones with you, but I'd love to ask you this question. I haven't done it in a while. I would love to know, in your own words, how you define success. What does that look like in your world?
In my personal world, how I will define success. And I actually think this is a fantastic question, Jennifer. I think everybody should ask themselves this question, because you need to know what your own level, your own definition is. I want a business that is thriving and growing, but never at the expense of my health or my relationships, ever. That's never, it's not going to happen. So I believe, like, one of the things I say and write every day, like, as my business grows, my health thrives, my relationships thrive. Like I have time, I have freedom in my life, and that's more important to me. So success is that it all gets to grow, and my health is always a top value, and my relationships are a top value. And that when I finish my time on this earth, that I know I don't have regrets. I didn't let that little inner voice stop me from doing what I was here to do. And without the regrets, knowing that I use, like, I think it's the Irma Bombeck quote, like, at the end of my time, I literally slide in and say, yeah, I used it all. I used every single thing I had. Like, that's success to me, is using my own gifts to make a difference and build that legacy.
Well, you gave me chills. So you said the right words today. I love it.
Good.
I used to ask that question. And I was thinking the other day, I was like, I haven't been asking that question. And I love that question, because I feel as though every time I ask this question, I get different verbiage, right? Different verbiage, but it's all kind of the same thing. And I feel like you and I are, like, connected on different ways, because this is exactly how I look at success. To me, it is about, doing what I love. It's about being able to make an impact and help others through the things that I've had to go through. But at the same time, not compromising my values. And my values are my health and my well-being and my relationships and all of those things that are important to me, right? Being able to do this on my terms. And I think that is what is so great about what we get to do as entrepreneurs, is that we get the ability to do that. Doesn't mean we don't work hard. doesn't mean we don't put in the grind, that we don't show up, but it means we do all these things on our terms, on our time.
Mm-hmm. You nailed it. Like I couldn't agree with you more. I really couldn't. I don't know if my version of me in 2020 would have answered that way. And that's been maybe, a couple of years later in age and maturity and just understanding the importance of values. I mean, I spent most of my life as the female entrepreneur that pushed hard to burn out. And that was a badge of honor. That was like, see, look at what I did. Right. And then no matter how much I did, it was never enough. It was never enough. And if I did burn out, I would shame myself for not doing enough, when meanwhile, I'm doing 5 times what the average person is doing. And finally, it hit a point where I was like, how many times are you going to live this cycle, Marsha? Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you really doing? And now it's, I prioritize health, prioritize sleep. My clients know I have really good boundaries, but I want to teach them that so they can do the same thing with their clients. And you know what? If we don't do those things, we're going to build a business that we resent. And like, what's that? What purpose is that serving? That's not going to serve anything. So I won't compromise on those values anymore.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for answering that question. I need to bring that one back. It's my favorite. I always get excited to hear what you guys say. I want to see if we're all thinking kind of the same things. And I'm so surprised. Like I said, everybody that comes on here really has, like I said, the same message. They just express it in different ways. It's always kind of a universal thing, I think.
It is. I think it's a great question. I would really encourage anybody who's listening, ask yourself that, because if we all have different definitions of it, and if you're chasing someone else's definition, you're never going to find it. Like, you're never going to find it. You have to have your own definition.
There's the mic drop, Marsha, right there. Well, this has been so good. This has been awesome. Marsha, I do want to ask you a couple fun questions. These are just like off the cuff sort of questions, nothing to pertain really with what you're doing. But I always think that it shows the vulnerable side of us, the human condition side of us, right? And so I like to do this.
I'm ready.
So I would love to know, besides your awesome books that you've written, because I know you've done collaboratives and you've done your own, but maybe another book that you feel like has been profound in your life.
A number of Brene Brown's books. Let me look at which is the one that I read every single year. Why can I not find it? I'd have to look it up.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah, you put me on the spot. The Brene Brown book, now that's going to drive me absolutely bonkers, because I read it like once a year. I also read Rebecca Campbell, Light is the New Black. I love that book. And then recently I read The Mountain Is You, and that is fantastic. It's a fantastic book, because I do believe we are the mountain in our own lives at all time.
Yeah, very good. All right. So you get up in the morning and get ready to go. What's the morning routine look like for you?
Morning routine looks like, for me, I get up, I brush my teeth, I throw my workout clothes on. I do the things in the kitchen that need to be done, basic things to start the day. Start with like green juice, my adaptogen teas, my lemon water. It's actually a bit of a concoction of a whole bunch of health, right? We're back to health again. Do my journaling, and I typically am listening to either a podcast or my subliminals and hypnosis that I listen to in the morning that just starts my mindset. And then I either work out first or I walk my dog. I walk my dog 45 minutes twice a day. And that is just I work on those things before I really try and do anything else. I also, in full transparency, sometimes my creative time in business is first thing in the morning. So I'll get up and work an hour, and I could get a ton done in that time. And then I shut it down, and then I go do those things. But those parts for my own health values are right up there. And I do the same thing at the end of the night. I try really hard to have computer off at a certain time, walk my dog again, get out and unwind. It's like those hygienes for morning and night, they've made a big difference for me.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. I know that's kind of a personal one, but I like that one. Because, I think a lot of times people are like, what do these guys do? Like, what does their morning routine look like? Right. And I share a lot of things like you do in the morning too. I sort of have my, my time. That's my time dedicated. Like, to have my breakfast, my green tea, walk my dogs, do my workout, have all my little things I do in order. Yeah. Sometimes I deviate a little bit, but for the most part, the routine is kind of set in place. So love that. All right. One other fun question, because I know you and I are into health. So I got to ask this one. What is the one guilty pleasure food that you love that is not on the good list item?
Well, on a typical good list, I'm going to say dark chocolate. If you ever told me I can't have dark chocolate, then I'd be like, no. That's, definitely dark chocolate. And I'm a little bit of a salty person when it comes to chips. I do quite like a crunch and salt, not sweet so much. Yeah.
Chips and salsa. That's my downfall.
Same here.
I can eat chips and salsa, I think, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like, I don't even need meat. I don't need anything. Just bring me it's got to be good, though. They got to be good salsa, good chips. And I'm good.
Absolutely. I'm okay if the bag's not open. Once that bag's open, yeah, it can be a little bit of a, yeah, it's over. It's over.
All right. Marsha, this has been so much fun. If our audience wants to get in touch with you, maybe they want to pick up a copy of your book, check out your podcast, or maybe somebody's, in their own chaos or whatever they're going into right now, and they want to reach out to you and say, hey, help. How do we want, or where do we want to send them?
The easiest way to send them is you can even just start typing Google. It's Marsha Vanwynsberghe. Everything I have now is Marsha Vanwynsberghe. It's website, it's social media, it's like Instagram, all the things. You'll find everything there. And my podcast is Own Your Choices, Own Your Life.
Perfect. All right. Well, this has been so awesome. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for inspiring our audience. And I wish you continued success in all that you're doing and how you're helping, continue to help people change their lives and making a difference in the world. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you, Jennifer. I want to say I love the conversation. I love being here. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Of course, we do want to say to our audience, if you enjoy the show, head on over to Apple, give us a review over there. You can follow us on YouTube. If you want video format, hit that subscribe button. And I want to leave you guys with the final thought that I always say. In order to live the extraordinary, you must start. Every start begins with a decision. You guys take care, be safe, be kind to one another, and we will see you next time.